Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and today we're going to be reviewing and diving deep into Valve's Steam controller. Not to confuse with the Steam controller they released 10 years ago now. But now we have more details. We've been testing this for the past 2 weeks, and we now know it's $99, $100 US, and it will be available this coming Monday, May 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific. Your time zones, and the pricing may vary based on the region you live in, of course, and that can all be bought via Steam. So it comes in this box. What comes in the box is a 5-foot long USB-A to C charging and syncing cable. This gets connected to a charging dongle, we'll call it a charging puck. Charging puck magnetically connects to the back of the Steam controller. This theoretically sits on the table and allows it to pair up to 4 Steam controllers to one charging puck over a dedicated low latency 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection. That then all fits in this very descript brown box, but thankfully this gets shipped in a far more nondescript brown enclosing box, so your delivery person hopefully won't steal it from you. That's not a Norm promise or guarantee or anything. In terms of buttons and controls, if you have a Steam Deck, it's almost exactly the same. You'll be very, very familiar with all the ABXY and all the buttons and thumbsticks, but there are some differences. So the thumbsticks now are TMR, tunnel magnetic resonance thumbsticks. These are an evolution over the Hall effect thumbsticks we find in high-end gamepads these days, and are far more durable, reliable, and low power consuming than the potentiometer-based thumbsticks we found in even the original Steam decks. In addition to that, you have these analog trigger buttons, and if you're a fan of the original Steam controller, unfortunately, this had a 2-stage trigger, and this only has a single action analog trigger. So that is a little bit of a regression. On the back, though, there are 4 buttons. We'll call these 2 grip buttons, and on the bottom, these are paddles, but 4 buttons for all sorts of customization, and everything, of course, can be customized via Steam input. What's new and different, though, with the Steam controller is that there are touch sensors underneath the thumbsticks, as well as touch sensors on either side. Valve calls this grip sense. The system knows whether you're gripping the left, the right, or both sides, which can then be used to activate a high-fidelity gyroscope for gyroscopic aiming. Much more practical to do that here than with a giant Steam Deck. There are, of course, the 2 touchpads on the bottom. By default, this activates a scroll wheel, and this on the right activates a mouse cursor. But again, this can all be customized, so it can be a radial dial. It can be all sorts of different ways to play PC games on a big screen or on a console-like environment. It connects over that 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection, but it also can connect to accessories and systems via a Bluetooth connection. So we did test this with VR headsets like the Apple Vision Pro running Steam Link, but it cannot connect to game consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. Unfortunately, this is made for Steam and PC gaming. But before we get into our impressions and our subjective experience using the Steam controller, because that word no longer has any meaning, I've said it so many times now, let's jump to a conversation I had with Valve designers and engineers about the making of this gamepad, in which they included some insights we did not know about that may be new to you as well. Let's take a listen. Stephen Lawrence, thank you so much for your time here, for making the time. The first thing that jumped out to me was, the pricing. It's a $100 controller, $99 controller. Is this something that you guys, when going into it, kind of knew that was, a premium controller was the kind of the thesis for this? Like, how did you, can you talk me through, the choice between choosing what to put in this controller and also matching the pricing?
Yeah, so I mean, primarily when deciding for this controller, it was about how much value we can provide in this controller in terms of advanced inputs and just like a generic full-featured gamepad when deciding the price point. And our perspective is more about how much value can we provide in a competitive price. And we think with the price that we landed that if you value those advanced inputs, it is a competitive price point when you compare it to what's out there. But if it's not something that you necessarily value, then maybe it's not the controller for you in that case.
I mean, it's always a balance, right? Yeah. So like, not only are there the advanced inputs, but we felt it was really important that people had an easy plug and play unboxing experience, that the wireless connection would always be rock solid. And because of that, we made the puck, which is, an additional piece of a controller that not everyone always provides. So we think that there's a lot of extra functionality and just really good quality of life features, to the point where we think that the price is accurate for what we're providing in terms of value.
Do you guys consider internally, is this kind of like a loss leader? Is this, there's all this hardware you can put in, but you're primarily getting people to install Steam and buy games via Steam.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really look at hardware as loss leaders. Like even with Steam Deck or other things, like we don't look at our products that way. We want them to be able to stand on their own. So we do think that Steam controller is a really competitively priced accessory for your Windows PC or your Steam Deck or the upcoming products. Like you said, it is a Steam focused controller. It is a Steam controller. So you're going to have your best experience if it is running games through Steam. Steam is basically a driver for all the advanced functionalities of the controller, which is why it's required for the most part.
In addition to just the number of inputs and buttons and the touchpads you've put in here, the quality of materials seems to be at least even a step up from what you guys put in Steam Deck. You guys have the TMR thumbsticks now. Can you talk to me? I understand the difference between Hall effect and the potentiometer-based thumbsticks and not having drift, but why go with TMR versus Hall effect, which theoretically also has longevity and presumably a little bit cheaper too?
In terms of any kind of magnetic sensing thumbstick and resistive, I think generally gamers are more and more aware now that the reason that they're more resistant to drift is because there's magnets and in the sensing interaction between like the actual component and the stick itself versus wipers. And the wipers can wear out over time is what the old school thumbsticks did. And that wear out causes drift that people experience. With the magnets, you don't have as many contacting surfaces. So in general, the thumbstick lands closer to center than other sticks do over the course of its life. So you get that performance benefit just from using magnets. In terms of Hall effect versus TMR, TMR has all the same benefits as Hall effect. It is still magnetic sensing. However, it's lower power. So we're able to, not impact battery life negatively by adding this new sensor to our controller.
Do you see just in the supply chain and in manufacturing that's something that the industry is trending toward, where it just makes sense to invest in it now because maybe in the future the cost will go down or replacement parts will be, or is it always going to be that extra tier of extra complexity and manufacturing?
I mean, I think a lot of the big players were kind of waiting for the technology to mature and to prove out the reliability over time, and that it really is a actual material performance improvement and not just a perceived one. And I think at Valve we're convinced, and I think most likely I think the industry will generally follow.
We're starting to see more folks have it. Like I believe the Lenovo Legion Go started added either TMR. So when we start to see the industry moving in this direction, and corroborated by our own testing, like our own cycle testing, and then also we work with the manufacturer to make sure that they're making it to our spec, then we feel much more comfortable shipping it in our own products.
Yeah, and we've been looking at this tech for a while too. Like this is just the first time we've been comfortable with implementing it ourselves.
Did choosing this tech and this manufacturer, does that have any effect on the design of the gamepad and the placement, and even going from locking into symmetrical thumbstick design versus asymmetrical? How much do the choosing of these parts and the inputs affect the actual decisions for how big this is and the placement?
Not a lot, believe it or not. Like at least in our experience, the vendors that are making these are trying really hard to make them almost a plug and play with existing resistive technology, so that vendors can just kind of swap them in and out. And you can see that just based on people who are selling replacement modules, and you could do it yourself at home. So there really isn't really a ton of like size impact or like layout impact. The one thing that we did have to consider is like it's magnetic sensing thumbsticks. We have other magnets in the products, and we have this puck which has really strong magnets in it. And that's something that we have to make sure that we consider when designing, so that we don't have any negative experiences around that. It didn't really have an impact on most of the system, but the actual puck itself actually did show some interference, and we put something in the firmware and tested it extensively so that when the puck is on the controller, there's a little handshake, and we offset the thumbstick values just to compensate for the field impact.
And it seems like one of the reasons for this design is to really have that Steam Deck parity, right? Like that people are comfortable and used to Steam Deck. I've been using it as the the gamepad for the Steam Deck, and obviously as you guys are going to be releasing Steam Machine and Steam Frame to have that familiarity. How do you think about, and did you experiment with different, more advanced features, more resistance in or customization, even in things like triggers. It's slightly different than Steam Deck. So how do you think about, the goals of parity versus the goals of maybe looking forward?
Yeah, so in all actuality, parity was one of the main driving goals for this controller. One of the main reasons we started working on this, there's a number of reasons, but one of the reasons was we noticed that the Steam Deck, one, we had a decent attach rate with our own dock, and then we know there's third-party docks, and people dock their Steam Deck, and then they go sit on their couch, and they're using a different controller with different inputs, and it is just kind of a jarring experience, especially for us too, who at Valve who play the same way. And so we knew we wanted to fill that gap. And to fill that gap, you have to kind of stay focused on parity and to make it feel comfortable and familiar when you go back and forth. Otherwise, it's just not a great experience. So we had that to keep us from going too crazy. Obviously, like anything that you can imagine around controllers out there, we have probably at least discussed. But we had that driving principle to help keep us on track on how we wanted to lay out this controller and what features to improve. On top of that, coming back to the price conversation, the more we add, the more, parts that go in, components, sensors that go in, and that drives up the price even more. So we really wanted to focus on providing different input modalities, prioritizing over like input modulation, call it, I guess, so that was one of our other focuses is giving people more ways to play.
It's just like a nice outcome of that, though, is that because we have these millions of Steam Decks out there and people are creating community configs for them, with that input parity, now with Steam Controller on day one, you have thousands of controller configurations for thousands of games out there that are made for these inputs. And we think that's just a really nice thing to have on day one. We're not starting from zero.
Yeah.
And then one other thing is that while we did stay within the input parity, we did take the opportunity to improve as much as we could of those inputs while we're working on it.
Oh yeah, the other thing, obviously grip sense is something that's new. That wasn't in the Steam Deck. So it's worth mentioning that was like the one thing that made it in that we were like, okay, this is justifiable. We understand why we would add this. And, similar to how the first controller set out to prove that trackpads are a way to play mouse and keyboard games and you can get good experience and get really competitive with that. Gyro has this incredibly passionate community that's been doing that right now. And it's like in a lot of ways more intuitive to play with a gyro because you're kind of like pointing and clicking. It's obviously not works like that. It's a lot more complicated. But to support that community, we wanted to get that other feature in there to help them with their gaming.
Yeah, it's way more twitchy. The acceleration curves are, you have to be really tuned to that. Are you guys sharing the polling rate for the gyro and how sensitive that is?
Well, our polling rate for the puck to communicate to the actual PC is 250 hertz, so it's 4 milliseconds. There is some like internal differences, like the sensors collect data at different rates than we report. We just typically right now are reporting that between like in-game action, or sorry, like a button press in-game action is 8 milliseconds of latency. And that's what we feel like will help most people make a purchasing decision. We actually were just discussing this, like what are the differences in all the internal sensor polling rates, and generally for now it's reporting at 4.
Right,
so.
But might you be doing some processing or aggregating of data and abstracting and creating more accurate feedback?
Internal calculations before reporting out the actual.
It's kind of like VR headsets, and how much the IMUs and gyros are calculating that. Going back to parity, as you're launching this kind of, couple years after Steam Deck now, and even Steam Deck OLED, and you guys have talked about developing Steam Deck 2. Does that parity then go forward and people who buy Steam controller now expect that it's going to be fully compatible with the features that you're thinking of or planning, and also kind of reverse as well, all the advancements and refinements that you put in Steam controller? That's a thing that you're also thinking of paying forward?
Yeah, I mean, while we're not talking about future hardware much right now, but like you could imagine that we would continue to carry things forward. Like, for instance, TMR thumbsticks are things that we're pretty happy with. Like, we put them into the Steam Frame controller, so I could see us using them in the future as well.
I want to switch over to a little bit about one of the surprises with Steam Controller when I chatted with you guys last was that it also is going to be recognizable by Steam Frame, right? It's going to be not just, you don't just have 3 degrees of freedom with the gyro, you can actually have 6 degrees of freedom. Is that my understanding, is that it's just one IR light on top that allows for that? Or is that a whole an array of lights?
Right now, there's one IR LED in the light pipe. It shares the same light pipe as the status LED.
Yeah. I think we'll have more information soon about the controller and frame integration.
Yeah. Is that a feature that third parties can adopt, or is third party controller support will be in these devices and machine and frame?
I don't actually know the answer to that question.
I also don't know.
Yeah,
this is a good question for the frame team.
Yeah. We'll talk to the frame team and get back to you.
All right, and having more. I'm in the same scenario you guys, where I have the Steam Deck docked and use it on a big TV, and until the Steam machine comes, of course. And right now, you guys send us some Steam controllers to use, but I want more. Like, what's the limit of how many pucks and Steam controllers, at least over that 2.4 gigahertz connection, that you can connect to a deck and machine?
That's a good question. So each puck can connect to up to 4 Steam controllers at a time. And actually that 250 hertz, it's solid for all 4 of those. So that's part of a lot of the work that we did around wireless, is to not only make sure that it was good and solid and stable, but also that it wouldn't deteriorate as more devices connect to it. And then, it depends on how many USB ports you have. I think we've successfully done up to 3 or 4 pucks.
We hooked up 16 controllers, over 4 pucks, to what we did internal company testing. But at this point, like 4 pucks with 1 controller will be a very consistent experience as one
puck.
Oh yeah. 4 controllers with 1 puck will be the same experience as 1 controller with 1 puck. So you don't get any kind of additional input latency as you add more controllers to a puck, up to the 4 that we allow.
Was there ever thought of releasing, for people who wanted to add on a SKU without the puck, to be more affordable, or then you can leverage the one that's bundled in?
Not right now. I think that right now, just to make sure that the out-of-box experience is good, it's just 1 puck per controller. Because even if you're not going to be using the puck for the wireless connection, it's still a really handy way to charge it.
Yeah.
So what we've done a lot of times, especially when we're testing Steam Machine, or if we have 2 controllers working off of 1 puck, we just plug the puck in by the coffee table or somewhere else, and then it just serves as a charging station that doesn't have any wireless connectivity.
There's no data over those pins, right? It's just charging over those pins.
Well,
it's
a little bit
nuanced, because as I mentioned before, like, we know when the puck is attached because of the offsets for the thumbsticks. There's some handshaking that happens to help with our pairing. When you put the controller on the puck, if it's not paired with it, it will ask you, do you want to pair with this puck? And that was for people who buy 2, or they have a Steam machine or whatever. It really just helps that experience to be a lot more smooth than having to navigate through the UI to figure out, how do I pair this was a new thing. So there's some low level communication. It's not sending controller data like, full speed gaming level data.
Yeah. And just like a controller, Steam controller can switch between the puck mode, wireless connection mode, and Bluetooth. It can recognize up to, is it 2 pucks that you can have? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 pairing slots with the puck connection.
Yeah, and that was largely due to, like, if you get a Steam machine and a controller with it, you get a puck with the controller, and you have your internal puck with the Steam machine. You can pair with your Steam machine, and then if you want to leave your puck upstairs by your PC, you can go back and forth between the 2 and not have to repair every time.
Are you guys planning on releasing? I know the first Steam controller, you encourage user modifications, and even with Steam Deck, I've seen people swap out their thumbsticks to Hall effect thumbsticks. Like, how open are you guys going to be sharing the CAD, or just documentations for people to design, make, and share their own mods?
Yeah, so we'll have a tight partnership with iFixit in terms of, like, replacement parts and all that, so that people can source their own. And then on top of that, we're going to provide the external geometries so people can make their own accessories. We provided them to a few places already, but we plan on sharing it out publicly like we did with the Steam Deck, both the puck and the controller. Especially from the puck side, one of the reasons we kept it small is because, like, big controller docks do exist, but we wanted to respect desk real estate. And plus, we like the experience of having it kind of snap up and charge and not have to kind of get it to align properly yourself. But with it being small, third parties can kind of design whatever they want around it. If they want to make a dock that holds it up, or a cool statue of Atlas, putting it on his shoulders, whatever they want to do, right? They can do that because it's small and easy to kind of design around.
Is there going to be a certification or verification program for people who want to put a compatible badge, or to do things more than just a passive modification?
For the for this kind of stuff, like we didn't really have that for Steam Deck. I don't think that will really be necessary for this product either. We do have a Steam compatible program for controllers, and we will work and we have been working with manufacturers to create other controllers that are made to work with Steam. But that's kind of separate from this kind of accessory.
Thank you guys so much again for making the time, for being so open about it as always. Yeah, and congrats on the announcement of the price and the launch date, and we're looking forward to May 4th.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Hey.
Yeah.
So I wanted to welcome into the conversation our senior producer, Josh Self. This is Josh. Josh, you play a lot of PC games.
Yeah.
Many games that are different than the ones I play.
Right.
And because Valve sent us 2 Steam controllers, I asked you to help me with this testing for this review. To kick things off, let's talk about the Steam controller just as a controller compared to the other first-party offerings out there. For me, previous to this, I've been very happy using like the Xbox controller as my primary gamepad. How do you think this compares to your favorite gamepad previously?
I would say, yeah, so I'm in the same boat. I use the Xbox controller mostly on my PC. But what I found ever since I got the Steam Deck is that if I'm using a gamepad, or if I'm playing a game that needs a gamepad, I play it on the Steam Deck.
Right.
And I usually play handheld mode. I don't have it docked or anything. So I actually haven't been using the Xbox controller that much since I got the Steam Deck. But that was my go-to PC gamepad for years, and bought a few of them, and as they broke down and deteriorated or whatever. But
I feel like Microsoft and Xbox, with the asymmetrical design and their buttons here, like their D-pad is, to me, superior than what I found on the Steam controller.
okay.
Like, it's a matter of preference. This is a little clickier. You can even hear it. It's a clickier D-pad.
Yeah.
Steam controller, it's a little mushier.
Yeah.
Right? The thumbsticks are basically equal. It's fewer features here, but they've really, to me, almost perfected the form factor. It weighs about the same. I like the contours and maybe the texture more, and it's a thing I miss when I was using the Steam controller.
Yeah, I think this is where we split a little bit, because I actually do prefer this kind of layout.
The symmetrical.
Yeah, I don't like it being offset. If I'm playing a gamepad game, I'm playing stuff like Super Meat Boy or Celeste or VVVVV, like those kind of platformers. And so I just like having it be symmetrical. And that was like when I started playing with an Xbox pad, I was sort of like, oh, I got to get used to this. And then, they moved it down and things like that. So
And I guess that's why the touchpad exists, right? So a lot of games that you're playing asymmetrically, the D-pad, for me, becomes like a menu option. You're using this for shortcuts, activating a menu, quick actions, and they have the equivalent of that you can then customize with Steam Input with that touchpad down here. Do you make use of things like the grip buttons or the gyro?
Yeah, I was using the gyro a lot during the testing. And I think by and large, a lot of the stuff that I was testing, I was just doing it to try it. And it wasn't even really like, I was just kind of like, okay, this is here. I'm going to set it up and make use of it. But yeah, so I was playing a bunch of Doom 2016 and that felt really good, actually. And that game doesn't have native gyro support. So I mapped the gyro to the mouse button, but you can still use the right thumbstick and look around. And then the gyro becomes like a fine tune, kind of finesse, get a headshot kind of thing.
And I think setup is the operative word here, because in the Steam menu, even if before you had the Steam controller, you can use Steam Input as a software layer to download templates, download predefined mappings that the whole community has made. And that level of granularity extends to something even like the gyro. That was one of those things I was really curious about. The pitch of, can you use the gyro as like a precision aiming device when you're scoped in, right? When you theoretically, when you're like looking down the barrel, like iron sights. And for me, the default for the gyro, which you can have it as a toggle, right? So you map it to the mouse cursor. You can set your dead zones. You can set all sorts of offsets. You can set sorts of like how many degrees per turn are you actually moving. But you can, for me, like playing Doom of the Dark Ages, I had the gyro mapped to when my thumb was on the thumbstick, because there's that capacitive sensor underneath here. And you can map it even to like the grip sense. So I think one of the ways that people use it is, when you have both hands, the gyro is activated. But because the gyro is only this 3 degree of freedom sensor, and you
Yeah.
can kind of lose your center, right?
Mhm.
You want to recenter it, then you maybe let go of the grip and then recenter your controller and then get the gyro back center.
Yeah, and that's something that happened to me during Forza. I decided that I would use the gyro as like the steering wheel,
Oh, okay.
and I set it so that when I was gripping it, the gyro was active. But I found that if I was moving my fingers around to hit the accelerator and the brakes and everything, it would lose where my hands were.
Oh, you
And
would
so it
actually
would
lose
turn-
the grip sense.
I'd lose the grip sense. It would turn the gyro off, and I'd be turning the wheel. And then when I gripped it again, this became center.
Oh,
And so I would have to
wow.
like let go and then like get it back.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was
Just
actually
because of the way
really
you're
not-
holding it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. We did a teardown of the Steam controller, and we could see along the inside
Mhm.
of the grip here where that capacitive sense is.
Right.
It's not a pressure sensitive, so the name grip sense I think is a little bit of a misnomer. It's
Okay.
more of like a passive, am I holding? It's a hold sense of whether you're
Yeah.
actually holding it. Because when you play like a VR game, for example, you want to grip, like the old Valve Index controllers, you actually
Mhm.
had a force sensitivity of how strong you gripped.
Right.
The equivalent of that for like a touch controller or something for VR is the button, right? So that's why I called this
Yeah.
the grip button. If you're gonna toggle, if you play a game like Half-Life Alyx, like
Mhm.
I'm pressing this, now I'm holding an object.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't let go of the controller to let go of an object in
Yeah.
that sense. I did find that sensitive, that area could be maybe bigger, right? It was like one
Sure.
strip.
Mhm.
And the thing that I had an issue with, and I'm curious about for your driving games, is the paddle button here.
Yeah.
Did you find that paddle button useful on the bottom, this lower back button?
Not really for driving, but for shooters.
Mm.
So I would map that to like a jump
Mhm.
in Doom, and then that way it let my thumbs just kind of stay on movement.
Right.
And so getting that jump button off my thumb was pretty useful.
I found that if you look at Valve's array of controllers, the way they've implemented just the back buttons has been different. Like
Yeah.
this in the original 2015 Steam controller, that's a paddle. Like it's a singular on each side. You only get two on the back, but that is clearly a wide paddle. So when you
Right.
think of the analog to like a steering wheel, you can like use this to shift gears.
Yeah.
Right. Very easily. Makes sense. It's wide. It clicks. On the Steam Deck, it's a pretty big. It's like curved, and I would still call these like I like using these paddles
Uh-huh.
because I can get two fingers on them. When I
Okay.
think of a paddle, I kind of want to have two fingers, my ring and pinky finger,
Right.
and that worked well. I found on this Steam controller, the circle, it being a little smaller. I wish that it was taller. Like
Yeah.
I'm just hitting it with my ring finger,
Yeah.
and I'm not. It doesn't feel as good,
Right.
and I feel like they could have had the circle for this top, what I call grip button, and then a taller paddle button. And again, looking on the inside doing the disassembly, there was space for it. They could have just wired around that capacitive sense back to the motherboard around a taller button.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish they changed.
I was actually I thought it was kind of weird that they're circles.
Yeah.
Like on the Steam Deck, you get those big squares that you can hit, and I think maybe it's so that you don't hit them as easily.
When you're holding on to it.
yeah.
Yeah. Although compared to the Steam Deck, it's more contoured. Like this is
Mhm.
ergonomically, not only is it lighter and your stance is, maybe more comfortable and tucked in,
Yeah.
but this contour here is curvier, which theoretically is, more comfortable to hold.
Yeah.
I still think it's not as comfortable. I like the ergonomics of this kind of bows up, and I know it's made for your thumbs
Right.
to articulate around those touchpads, but I still think like the Xbox is kind of my favorite
Yeah.
in terms of this the shape and the feel of the material
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny because you did the teardown and we were looking at it, and I could see $100 worth of stuff in there.
They're
But am I
surprising amount of
getting-
electronics, right?
Yeah. It's like, am I looking at $100 and am I getting $100 experience from it? Like, remains to be seen. But
Yeah, it seems like, and in the conversation with Valve, they fully acknowledge like their robustness for this controllers is in the software layer, right? Though they've created almost like a platform of a controller for enthusiasts to be able to competently play your keyboard and mouse games on a big screen TV,
Yeah.
to customize everything about these touchpads, about the gyros, to map out all sorts of macros, which is very different than like this is the PlayStation Edge controller, their high-end, like $150 controller, and all the customization here is in the hardware, right? They actually
Right.
have literal physical toggles for resistance,
Right,
for
right.
the triggers, and you can swap out the touchpads and add different types of paddles in the back. And I really like this paddle design. I'm really
Those are
happy
nice.
with. These
Yeah.
are super
Mhm.
nice. Much heavier controller, but it's in the hardware, and this looks and feels like a premium hardware device.
Right.
While this maybe the experience is more premium because of what you can do if you are willing to spend the time to
Yeah.
customize it. This feels like an $80 controller to me, and maybe it's
Yeah.
because I don't make use of the touchpads nearly as much as maybe some other people do.
Sure.
And I kind of wish there was a version of this without the touchpads.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? Should I try to justify this?
I mean, when you look at it and you look at like the real estate on the faceplate and everything, it's so much they have to like devote to those touchpads. And, it's not as crazy as the original Steam controller, where this was like a hardware solution trying to solve a software problem, essentially. They're backing away from that a little bit, but not taking it away totally. I'm not using the touchpads to play something like Crusader Kings or like Diablo 2 or something like. It's not there. I don't want that experience on a couch still. The keyboard and mouse is still superior for those games that were designed for it, basically.
And I think we've kind of moved like 10 years down the line now, right? Like for shooters, there was a case to be made that, if you wanted to have a great shooter experience, you had to go on keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of cross-platform games now, and a touchpad gives you maybe better precision. I think the gyro does a great job of giving me a lot of that precision.
Definitely.
So I like the gyro a lot. I feel like the touchpad is like it's a crutch. It's solving a game design problem that maybe doesn't exist anymore because so many AAA games now are cross-platform and have been designed and optimized for a gamepad in mind. It's also solving a fundamental interface problem. I mean, SteamOS being a Linux system and it having to do the Proton translation layer to get PC games working, Windows games working on Steam means that you run into having sometimes to go into a desktop, having to see, a login screen, having to navigate small UI. Like this is a UI problem that hardware is trying to address and solve. But in an ideal world, like maybe just even the Steam store, right? Navigating big picture mode, yes, that's nice and I can see my library and home. But once I get to a store page and getting into the community tabs and in the store page, it feels like it's a desktop experience still.
Yeah, it goes right back to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is like maybe a philosophical thing that Valve has decided to make, right? Like they could make the Steam interface just more gamepad friendly, more thumbstick and button friendly, so you don't need the trackpad. But I mean, that could be, like I said, it could be crazy.
Yeah.
Are you going to switch to this?
Honestly, yeah, I think this is going to become my new PC gamepad, and I'll keep the Xbox One around. But one last thing is like when I was thinking about the price, I've gone through probably a few Xbox pads, and they're not that easy to repair, and it's almost kind of worth it to just like buy a new one eventually, or even like sourcing the shoulder buttons and things like that. So, if they can commit to this being easily repairable, then maybe like $100 over the course of 3 years or so, justifies itself.
And this is something that we kind of wanted to get out of them during the interview was, what is the longevity of this? How future-proof is this gamepad? Because presumably we know they're working on Steam Deck 2. And it sounds like Steam Deck 2, the impression I got, would not have extra features that then the Steam controller would not be able to have parity with.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to have fundamentally different triggers or a different interface. The fact that this can get tracked by a IR light with the Steam frame, that's gonna be really exciting because I really love the idea of having the visualization of this while wearing a VR headset. And to that point, over Bluetooth connection, I was able to connect this to the Vision Pro, go play over Steam Link, so you have that low latency connection directly to the headset, and the Vision Pro immediately recognizes this both as a gamepad, but also the trackpads as a cursor, as a scroll wheel, and even over that Bluetooth and then Steam Link connection, Steam recognized that it was the Steam controller. It wasn't a generic gamepad. So you don't have to be directly connected to the charging puck. You can be piggybacking off of a VR headset and still have full functionality
Yeah.
on Steam controller. The range was great, that 2.4 wireless connection. Obviously, we only had these units. We didn't have the 16 that they said you can plug up, you know, for a Steam machine. And the Steam machine will have a dedicated receiver, so you don't need that charging puck.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's also another place that they could cut down on the pricing, you know, in the future.
True, yeah.
For people buying their second or third Steam controllers, charge much less than $100 if you don't need that the puck with it.
Right. Yeah, I foresee most people that own these in the future probably got them in a bundle with a Steam machine or a Steam frame.
Right.
I don't see a ton of people buying this just as a replacement Xbox controller, or, you know, maybe you have one of these as the daddy controller, then you have your little brother controllers with it too. But
we're hungry for Valve hardware,
Yeah,
right? You know, it's been a couple months since they announced all the hardware. Steam Machine, who knows when that's going to come out, when Steam Frame's going to come out. So I think people are just like, we want what's new, we want, and this is the new thing.
Yeah.
Right now, it's been, you know, the manufacturing date says September 2025. So these have been sitting
yeah.
in a warehouse, and it's hardware awaiting more hardware.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like a few months ago, the future seemed so bright for Valve hardware,
Yeah.
and it's almost like we got like the little morsel
Waiting for the
this
main
year.
course.
So yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully that will be sometime soon. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.